Yambo and Hakuna Matata. This is Luke Radowski of WeAreChange.org here in Africa, more specifically Nairobi, Kenya. And I've been learning a lot of interesting things about Kenya, specifically about the expat community here. And it's a very impressive one. And to talk about that, we have Blake Simpson, who is an expat from the United States here. And in this video, we're going to get into the good, the bad, the interesting, the crazy, and also how to bribe a Kenyan police officer. Now, Blake, first of all, what made you come to Kenya and how has your experience been here so far?
Sure, it's been up and down, definitely. I first came here, I think 6 years ago, volunteering, teaching English, kind of a very typical volunteer experience when you're in the slums, teaching English for 3 months, doing feeding programs and things like that. And the only thing that actually kept me here was when I met one of my business partners at a bar, and he kind of showed me the other side of, you know, being a foreigner, owning business here, having a business degree, and kind of getting more into, tech startups and things that aren't so kind of save the world Africa that you see in the US. So yeah.
I mean, I want to get into some of the bad before we get into the good, because it's also just fascinating being here for the first time in Africa and experiencing a lot of these things. But like the first thing coming here, the person who is handling my tickets at the airport, she was like, "You're not afraid to come here?" And then people are like, they're calling this place Nairobi. At the hotel, they're saying, don't come out after 6. Of course, we always come out. Blake showed us around, took us to a very cool kind of club here. It's been very safe, nothing bad happened to me. But the laws here are kind of really interesting to me because they're very strong. Like if you smoke a cigarette here on the streets, it's a $400 fine. Which is a lot of money, especially for local Kenyans. If you now have a plastic bag, that is also a $400 fine. And if there's a Kenyan company giving out that plastic bag, they have a fine of $40,000. There's also a lot of permits. I mean, they require permits for filming here. They require now permits for even flying drones here, which I didn't know about. And before they just implemented this permit system just a few days ago. If you would have flown a drone, the police would have came to you and you would have faced a $10,000 fine or 6 months in jail for just simply flying a drone here in Kenya. So those are some of the things that I see that are kind of the negative parts of being here in Nairobi. How do you see it and how do you deal with those kind of things?
So for me personally, I mean, it's all, I've gotten 2 here, thank you. I mean, it's rules that you can work within, you know, so the problem is, like, even with the plastic bags and the cigarettes, there's still corruption at such a low level that if you get caught smoking a cigarette, you're going to pay like maybe $1 on the street to a cop. So there's going to be no like certain levels that then you're taken to the station and deal with the officers, and so it's all kind of right on the ground that you deal with it.
If I could just cut you off, like one of the things that I learned here is that if you are caught with like a plastic bag or a cigarette on the streets and you have one of the officers stop you, you just say Hakuna Matata, which means no worries, brother. You say Yambo, which is the welcome and greeting here. You're supposed to kind of act humble a little bit, but then kind of ask the officer if you could buy him some tea and coffee, and you give him $5 or just a few US dollars, and then they're like, all right, thank you for showing me respect, and they kind of walk away, and you kind of avoid a lot of those problems. So that's kind of like what I've been told here on how to deal with police officers. My friend Jeff Berwick, the Dollar Vigilante, he was late for one of the Bitcoin conferences happening here, and he was just walking down the street smoking a cigarette. An officer tried to stop him, an officer was like, "You make mistake." Jeff responded like, "No, you made a mistake," and then like told him off and kept running, which I was advised not to do here because they do take it seriously when you do kind of offend them, because there is this culture of like a lot of respect here.
Yeah. And power, like
and power, but it is very up and coming. They're building one of the largest buildings here in all of Africa. There's a lot of tech startups. There's M-Pesa. There's a lot of blockchain technology being utilized here, and they really look from, even with the government officials that I talked to here, on the forefront of kind of technology here as well.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's one of the things, like, it's very relationship based, especially with getting caught on the street with cops. It's like, you know, if you try to tell them off and you try to be the one that is, you know, in charge, then they're gonna kind of see that and go over and say, you're my prisoner now, I take you in. But if you be chill with them, Hakuna Shida, Hakuna Matata, you take them to the side, you talk to them a bit, then they're fine. I mean, they want to feel that they are in power. And if you give them that, then they're fine.
Yeah. It worked for Jeff, but I wouldn't recommend it, especially, but it's Jeff Berwick. I mean, what else do you expect?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what else are some of like the good parts here? I mean, M-Pesa is really fascinating here because I see it used and utilized everywhere. Can you just explain to the audience what is M-Pesa, how do you use it, and the kind of technological startups and some of the positive sides of Nairobi?
Sure, yeah. So M-Pesa is ran by Safaricom, which is the biggest telecommunications company here. So it'd be like AT&T essentially having their own digital currency that they use. It's all mobile to mobile, peer to peer, and you can use it even on like simple cell phones. So it's SMS based, it's platform. It's like a SIM application actually inside the SIM. And again, it allows you to go to anyone in the street or anyone in business. Every business has a till number that says the M-Pesa little 6-digit number. You go on your SIM application and you pay your till or pay goods and services or send directly to friends and family. It's great for remittance across the borders as well, and it's quite cheap. I was just telling you, it's like, you know, to send $400 or $500 maybe costs like $3, so that's less than 1% on what you're sending. Yeah, so it's not bad.
And you know, the people here are also very warm and nice and not overbearing. They're not always bothering you, but they're also just very friendly. I mean, some of the places you took me to were just really awesome, with people just hanging out and getting together. It seems like also, even though there's a lot of like state government laws here, it does seem like a very relaxed kind of chill vibe where there's a lot of opportunities as well.
Yeah, and I make the point sometimes that like, you know, in Western countries, if like, for instance, like you lose your home or you lose like your place to sleep, then you're kind of out on the streets and you're I mean, you're essentially, I don't know if I can swear on here, you know, you're dead in the water. Whereas here, especially in African countries, you know, if you lose the place that you're living, you'll go back to the farm, and your parents or your cousins have a shamba that you can work on. So there's something to kind of fall back on. So there's, you know, there's importance in security a lot here, but it's still something where you can leave to the country and be a farmer. I mean, 75% of the business here is agriculture, and that's all GDP. So it's like there is a lot of kind of that I think creates that very lax environment where people aren't so stressed out all the time, and they kind of have more of a friendly persona when you see them, you know, day to day.
Yeah. And respect for nature, like we're seeing in kind of the natural preserves that they have here, and how, you know, they kind of bring people in to be a part of it, but not to disturb it as well. So they have huge natural reserves here that are just beautiful to see and beautiful to visit. The traffic, though. We were supposed to do this interview like a day ago, but the traffic was so intense. Google Maps showed me 15 minutes. Took an hour and 15 minutes. We had to cancel it. Had to go somewhere else. 2 hours in a taxi when it should have taken 10 minutes. So that's one of the other kind of negative downsides. But do you have anything else you want to share with people about who are thinking about expatriating, possibly living here, the ins and outs, the goods and bad?
Yeah, I mean, definitely get on the forums. On Facebook, there's massive groups for expatriates, whether it's like trying to find housing or, you know, trying to meet up with groups, and even, you know, like you can find an expatriate German group full of like 200 people that they'll meet at Jay's or at Alchemist some night. And so it's very easy to get into these groups. There's a lot happening here. There's so many different sub areas. We're in Westlands now. You can go over to Kilimani where we were earlier, in CBD in town. So, I mean, there's a lot of place for young people to hang out, and it, you know, not just for industry, but also for entertainment and afterlife. The electronic music scene is quite big here. So a lot of expatriates do love it here, but a lot of people don't as well. You know, you get a ride from the airport and maybe you get robbed, and then that's your first personal experience you have, and you think, okay, Kenya's Nairobi now. So it's really about, you know, standing up, putting your shoulders back, walking with confidence, and, you know, be patient as well. If one thing happens to you, it doesn't mean that the next 5 things are going to follow suit. There's a lot of good to be had here. You just have to be patient, I think.
And respectful, and of course street smart, just like in any major city. I'm happy to be here. That may be because I just came back from Mogadishu, Somalia. But that's a whole different story. Actually, me and Blake have a very interesting way that we actually met up, because Jeff Berwick hit me up and he asked me if I wanted to be a part of a Bitcoin conference here in Nairobi, and then he asked me if I wanted to go to Somalia. I made the decision within moments, looked at friggin' flyer miles, booked a really cheap ticket that didn't cost me anything out here. And then one of the first videos, as I was about to go to the airport, that I saw was from my friend Riley that I met in Thailand. And I'm like, oh man, Riley was out here. He must know some contacts. I hit up Riley on Instagram as I'm boarding the flight. And then as soon as I land, as soon as I get out of the airport, Blake's just standing there. And he's like pointing at me, waving at me. I'm like, is there so many few white people here that we all just got to stick together or something? I don't know this dude. I don't know who this guy is. And then he was like, oh man, Riley just told me about you. and you were there picking up your friends who were coming from the same flight from New York as me, who were also videographers, and then you just randomly just met me, and then we've been hanging out, and I got a ride. Jeff came late, so I got to stay in his suite, which is really nice and really awesome. So everything just worked out very synchronistically. I'm enjoying my time here. So just wanted to make a good video. If people were considering expatriating, I know that's a big part of our community, a big part of our audience. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends and family members. And of course, Blake, I just wanted you to leave off with the last message and where people could find more of your video work.
Yeah, man, Kenya is an amazing place. It's an adventure every day here. That's why I love it so much, and you can kind of see that. You know, every day you wake up and you're not exactly sure what you're going to get into. So that's why I'm here. I've been here for like 5-6 years. I move around. I bounce between here and Zanzibar. But our production house here is Project Studio Creations. On Instagram, you can find my personal account, Blake the Jake. And yeah, that's about it. Enjoy your time, and please come here. Karibu Sana, you're very welcome. Talk to Luke, and he can get in contact with me, and we'll hook you guys up.
Hakuna Matata.